I have a couple questions wrapped around one subject. My primary question that I have a personal desire to find the answer to is how to see with my inner vision, which I've mentioned, third eye energy. I really want to see through that inner vision. And like the last gentleman just talked about, I had a very powerful experience one time where that seemed to be getting ready to happen, and I, at the very last moment, experienced a deep fear of the power that was making that inner vision become active, being able to be also the fear was that with that vision, I would also have connection with other entities or other powers, and that would also leave me receptive to being in I guess, a vulnerable position, because I sensed the amount of power that was happening in that experience, which is a power that I haven't ever experienced before.
The thing about coming into connection with who you really are is that you can't really do it unless you're ready. In other words, if you're not vibrationally up to speed, then it doesn't happen. And in that little bit of offness, sometimes you misinterpret that power. It's like, there are no analogies that are perfect, but it's like if you were to draw a tub of water that was very, very hot and step into it, it would be a stark relationship with the water. If you were to get into cooler water and then bring the temperature up gradually, you would not notice the difference because you are acclimating along the way. So what you're really talking about more is the relationship between what you've got going on vibrationally and what you're asking for. And so when you ask for more than you're really ready for, it feels like you're not ready. But you don't need to worry about it, because more than you're ready for will never be your experience. It cannot possibly be. And then when you hook up with it, then Esther remembers that in the early days when she would, well, first she was sitting. She wasn't standing, but she was sitting in a chair. And Jerry wanting to have conversation with Abraham. And Esther's own energy field was in a very good place as humans go. She was bipping along, living happily ever after, and they'd been meditating, and so her vibrational frequency was coming into alignment with what our energy is, but she was not fully in alignment. And so the experience in those early days, she could feel the power of it. She felt herself swooning as we would become part of her consciousness. Sometimes Jerry's questions would summon such intensity, and Esther's readiness was not quite there, and her physical body would sort of revolt or jump around. She has some videos that you will never see of her legs dancing around a little bit, because she was not really ready for the intensity that was there. Ready enough, but not really ready. And so those experiences in those very early days were sort of uncomfortable to Esther. Now, this was a situation where Jerry and Esther were so at one with one another, true soulmates, and truly in vibrational harmony in terms of what they had going on in this physical experience, that Jerry's desire was the step one part of all of this, and we were the step two part of all of this, and Esther was the step three part of all of this. Jerry was asking, and Esther was allowing it to happen. And so in a situation like that, someone's desire could be considerably stronger than Esther's readiness. You see what we're getting at? Where usually if it's just you and you can't ask for more than you're ready for. You really don't need to worry about that. We are not wanting to make it sound as if there was anything really out of alignment with Esther either, other than she would describe it. She said it felt like having her toe in a light socket, because the power of the energy was so much stronger than anything that she'd ever experienced. Then, in time, she acclimated so easily to the energy that is us that it almost feels to Esther like normal conversation. Aside from the fact of the incredible feeling of love and clarity that pours through her in this situation, her physical feeling about it and her mental awareness of it, it's soft and easy, you see. So go back to the first thing that you were asking about.
The vision?
Yeah.
My deepest desire is to have that inner vision, to be able to see the energy that moves through myself, the energy centers.
Here's the thing, that we want you to use vision in a new way. we want you to ask yourself, what is your visual experience with the energy of love? It's sort of like a television commercial that Esther's been enjoying lately, where there's a big smelly dog in a car, and they say the people in the car have gone nose blind. And Esther thought that's so funny to use the word nose and a reference to sight at the same time. Nose blind. She thought, there must be a million ways I can use this. And we're sort of asking you the same thing, because we want you to feel your connection rather than see it. And so we want you to use the word sight and vision and instead mean knowing or feeling or discerning, just for a little while. There's all kind of light moving around. You're beginning to see some of that. In other words, you may be a very visual being. Do you see energy around Esther when you're sitting out there?
I see some, I
This
sense
is not
more
the
than I
best
see.
environment for it. Do any of you see any of the energy around? But don't try to make it a visual thing. Let it be a sensing thing, a knowing thing, a feeling thing. The best way to see and understand and know the energy of alignment, the energy of your source, the non-physical energies, is by feeling it in your solar plexus. And once you get on the bead of that, you know what we mean? Once you get on the trail of that, once you get on the frequency of that, just do your best to relax, 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 relax. Esther used the words, once she felt that energy moving through her, and at first it was a little startling to her because it was so strong, and she didn't really know what was going on because she could only take our word for it. And so she was just sort of going by her own experience. And then one day, the word floated into her mind. We projected it and she connected with it, but it was a word that she meant. And she said, I'm willing. I'm willing. And in that willingness, the resistance was gone. And when the resistance was gone, any trepidation was gone. And locked on connection happened. And that's what you're talking about.
Is it possible for myself to open that energy in a similar way that Esther does? And I ask simply because
Yes. Yes.
my meditations are the ones that produce a lot are extremely powerful meditations. They're not the nice, happy, more passive
Here's the
meditations.
thing.
people
Let's
speak
talk
of.
about this for a moment, because meditation, in the way that we mean it, is a quieting of your mind in order to allow a rising of your vibration, a raising to allow your vibration to rise. And then once that's happened, then all kinds of communication can begin. But don't try to be too hands-on in meditation. Just quiet your mind and allow. And sometimes when you're trying to guide it, and a lot of people do, in other words, sometimes people try to make the energy into words before they are even in the receiving mode, you see.
Is focusing on the power of that energy versus just sitting back with it a wrong thing to do?
It's not the wrong thing to do, but you can feel tension in it. It's like you're trying to make something happen, and you're not the maker of the things that will happen. You're the allower of the thing. Just remember, you're in the receiving mode. You're in the receiving mode. And as you are in the receiving mode, then you become blended, and then you are one. And then it doesn't matter what part of you's receiving and what part of you's transmitting. In other words, now you're off and running.
My last question concerning this subject is there anything in my case or anybody's case to be scared or
Nothing.
hesitant about?
Nothing. Because you're tapping into this non-physical energy stream. Oh, well, let us start at the beginning of this, because we can feel a lot of things in the room about this. Every thought that has ever been thought still exists. And law of attraction has gathered those thoughts together. And so there are rivers and streams of fearful, worrisome thoughts that a person could tap into. But if you're meditating and quieting your mind, you're releasing yourself from all of that. And now you're tuning in to this energy of source. Now, we suppose a case could be made when you're talking about non-physical energy, people want to call non-physical energy anything that they can't see or hear or smell or taste or touch. Well, when we say non-physical energy, we mean source energy. We don't mean the spin-off of man's conscious thought. We don't mean fearsome or worrisome thought forms or thought rivers. In other words, you get the sense of it. Every thought that's ever been thought still exists. And so you can tune into that and you can get pretty fearful about things that have nothing to do with you. But when you do, the most important thing to realize is that all that is really happening is that you're using whatever your point of focus is to disconnect with your true well-being, with your true goodness, with your true source, you see. So we're answering your question specifically. Since you have meditated, since you have quieted your mind, since you've accomplished this releasing of resistance and this connection with source energy, there is nothing in that connection for you ever to fear.
Even when I do go into the big meditations, I get the toe in the light socket thing. And then when I quiet that into a meditative way, which controls it, I very often have other entities, or what seems like other entities. It could be just a part of myself. It feels like, and maybe this is what happens with Esther, other personality sort of feeling energies connect with me and mix with me. Is that, and they feel very good, but they worry my mind.
You've got to understand that this stream of consciousness, it's lots of non-physical consciousness. Esther said when Jerry made his transition, she wanted to keep him separate. She didn't want him to become part of the Abraham soup. Just stay separate, Jerry, so that I can tell when I'm talking to you. But of course, he's not going to remain separate. He's going to become part of the collective consciousness. And sometimes when Esther will ask a specific question, she can pull the consciousness that is specifically Jerry forward. But there's really no advantage to doing that, you see. And so we think you're just overthinking it. We think that you're just thinking too much about this. Non-physical feels mysterious to a lot of you, but it should not be, because you are all extensions of it. And really the thing that you most want to be aware of is whether you are in concert with your source energy or whether you're pinching yourself off from it a little bit. That's all. And nothing uncomfortable or nothing harmful, nothing dangerous could ever come about by you being connected fully with who you are. All you could do under those conditions is just love more.
So these are not possessive forces. They don't feel like it, but it does feel like encroachment from other energies.
That comes about because of your realization. It feels to you, as you've been focused in your human personality, that as you're thinking your thoughts, that's the way you want it to be. And if anyone else is thinking and you're receiving, then there's something that feels a little uncomfortable to you about that. But we want you to know that you have not been singular in the thinking of your thoughts ever. You've always been an extension of source energy, you see. So when you come into full consciousness, full resonance, full blending with that broader part of you, you're just wiser and broader and deeper. You're not being possessed by love and possessed by infinite intelligence. You're just finally allowing who you really are to flow fully into this personality. Those of you who know Esther on a day-to-day basis and know Abraham see a distinct difference in Esther and Abraham, mostly about intensity. Esther's fun and she wants to have a good time, and she is occasionally in a negative place while Abraham never is. But it's the intensity mostly, it's the wholeness mostly that makes the difference. So what we're saying to all of you is that you all have the potential to be more than you're allowing to flow through in any moment in time. And we can understand some of your trepidation about it. In other words, don't worry about it. We're not asking any of you to stand on a stage and do what Esther is doing ever, unless it is something that you want to do. Esther said to Jerry, you better not tell anybody about any of this, because she just thought it was so weird. She didn't want anybody to know what sort of a weird thing that she was experiencing. And it wasn't until she began to feel the fullness and the wonderfulness of it and the sureness of it. And it really wasn't until in the middle of an intense conversation where Jerry was plying us with questions and Abraham was blowing and flowing through Esther, full speed ahead, and the telephone rang. And when the phone rang, we just left Esther to answer the telephone.